I've been on the wrong side of a 3-1 series lead. 2015 to Houston. How would you sort of describe in the moment what you're feeling as it goes from 3-1 to 3-2 to 3-3, and then you've got a game 7 where anything can happen?
That was my first and only game 7. I didn't feel it like the pressure. Maybe in part because we didn't go to Denver for game 6. And then you feel like, oh shit, like we might, like this might be it. Or like you playing Utah. Like the crowd aspect I think was huge as well. I tell people that all the time, like, you get the ball in the fourth quarter, like with a minute and 50, the whole arena's standing up and they all rise at once when you bring the ball. Like, what I'm talking about. You bring it up the foot and everybody just starts standing up. Like there's a certain element. You wouldn't know if it was like the fourth or the first in the bubble. You know what I mean? So I didn't feel it from a pressure standpoint. I just really was like, man, we need this one. Every night was like, we need this one. But game 7 in the game, when you miss 3 or 4 in a row, it doesn't feel like the end of the world, but it feels different. And that was my first one. So okay, I get it now. And we had came back from being down like 15, tied the game. I had a good third quarter to kind of bring us back after having foul trouble early. And it was just like, it's all about who you have around you. We had guys that, man, we just tried to fight away first to persevere, but it's tough, man. Like when your back's against the wall like that, like that shit hurt. Like that was one of the toughest losses because you immediately go back to, if I didn't take forever, and the 8-second call, game 1, we were up 20. Game 5, game 6, anything can happen. And then game 7, anything can happen. So it's just like you immediately go back to the what I could have did. And that's a terrible feeling as an athlete to go right immediately after that. Like I should have, especially an 8-second call. Like for me, that's where I put the blame on. I put the blame on myself, and everybody tells me not to. I put the blame on myself because it was one of those where the clock starts, but you hit out of bounds. So you only have 6 seconds to bring the ball up. So I'm just walking it up gingerly. And that's a pivotal game. They come down, score. Yeah, we score, but then they hit another shot. So now it's a tie game. Like that changes the entire complexion of the series. And that one was what hurt for me.
I was trying to think of a way to describe the feeling because you're still confident, but I think by the time you get to game 7, it's sort of like if there was a glass of wine sitting right here, like a nice bottle of red, nice glass of red Burgundy, and you tapped it over and like I'm watching it fall and I'm like, oh shit, like I don't think I'm gonna be able to catch this. This Burgundy's gone. Exactly. It's like that's sort of what the feeling is like. It's like, oh, that's inevitable.
Right.
And it's funny you bring up not really thinking about game 7, because when I think about that series against Houston, I think about the fact that for games 1 and 2, CP was hurt with a hamstring injury. So we lose game 2. Then we go up 3-1, we win 2 at home. Thinking about really how nonchalant we were about game 5, because we know we're coming back to LA game 6. And then I think about that fourth quarter where, at some point in the third, we're up 19, and then Josh Smith and Jason Terry and Corey Brewer all go nuts in the fourth quarter with James Harden on the bench. I think about all those what ifs.
Never.
I don't ever think about game 7.
Never. Because it's like, why are we there?
Yeah.
Why are we there? Like, we didn't do what was necessary. Like the one outside of the 8-second violation, the one that gets me is the 20-point lead in game 5.
Yep.
Like we put them away, and you could feel that they were ready to fold. They were like, and I say like they were right here, and they started the second half out, maybe hit their first 2 shots, whatever it was, and then it's like, oh, they sit up a little bit, like okay, and then we don't execute as well. We commit a stupid turnover. Like now, then we're thinking like, all right, we'll get it back, and then next thing you know, now we have to go to a game 6. Like why are we even at that point? And that's the one thing that really hurts us because we just, like you said, not nonchalant. Because there's other games that can be played. We have other chances to win until you get to game 7. Then it's like, well, you put yourself in this position.
When you're talking to the guys here, is it a thing? I mean, obviously it's like Kevin is here. There's a couple other guys here that have been through this, but for the most part, it's a young team that has not. Is this one of those things that like they just have to be in it to get it? Like, is there anything you can even say, or is like until you're in this experience, you don't
talking about the game 7 experience, or just the playoffs?
Just the playoff experience of going to a game 6, going to a game 7.
You have to experience it, but I think for me, I'm very thankful for the vets I had my rookie year. Whether it was, Ricky hadn't made it to a playoff, but he was still a vet. Ricky, Epe Udo, who else? Derek Favors, Rudy, Joe Ingles, like guys who have been there, and you prepare for it now or when camp starts. So like there's certain times in practice where guys will be like, that's a foul. Well, I'm like, we're not getting that in game 3 in Milwaukee. So get over it. Like stop complaining to it. Like the little things you can start to put into situations. Like even when you're playing throughout the regular season, like, you know, certain turnovers, like, yeah, we're up 20 against the bottom team in the league and we're probably going to win this game in the 4th. But I've been up 20 in the 3rd quarter and we've lost 12 times last year in Utah. So like kind of going at it from that standpoint is the best way I think to prepare for it because until you're there. But how do you prepare before that happens? And a lot of it for me is turnovers and foul calls, like in the defensive mishaps. Like, like no, there's none of that. Hold yourself to the highest level. And you're not going to be perfect. You're going to fuck up. Like you're not going to be perfect. But if you can hold yourself to that every day and exaggerate it, like get overboard with it. So when it becomes routine, we're in March, April, May, June, and it's like, oh, this is what it is. Even the moment at its highest, you're still falling back to those habits because you're used to playing through whatever it may be.
I think early in my first take tenure, this is when you guys were playing fairly well to start the season. I think you had the #1 net rating in the league for the first 6 weeks or so. And I made a comment about your group potentially being like Milwaukee, where there's a series of playoff failures that, you know, Giannis and Milwaukee had, whether that was conference semifinals or, you know, losing to Boston without Kyrie in 18 and losing to Toronto. And then there's a breakthrough. And I said, you know, this Utah Jazz could be this year's Milwaukee Bucks team. And by like mid-season, I'm like, I think the Utah Jazz are stale. And whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But I think about my Clippers team a lot. And I think about the life cycle of teams.
I do too.
Yeah. I think about
I do.
I think about the life cycle of teams where there's like promise. And sometimes there's failures that are so devastating, whether that was, you know, Houston in 2015 or the year before, losing to Oklahoma City. And you can't recover from them. I don't know why. And because of those failures, they're like abnormal failures, right? And I don't know if it's resentment that builds within the team or whatever it may be. It's like they weigh more heavily on the group than others would.
Yeah.
Do you think that's sort of accurate?
Yeah, I think there was the Clippers series. Denver made us stronger. Denver was like, okay.
Right, because you guys came back and you were number one
seed. Like, yeah. Denver made us stronger. We had Bojan, who we didn't have in the bubble. But the Clippers, it was like, oh, like, because we felt like this was, even though I was hurt and Mike had his hamstring thing, we were like, okay, we get Mike back. You know, we beat the Clippers. We can beat Phoenix. We believe in that, confident, or at least give ourselves the best opportunity to beat Phoenix, and then possibly go from there. And I feel like that was the problem. Like that was a problem. So I take that for myself as well. I put a lot of pressure on myself in that way. But like I'm thinking like, okay, all we need is one in LA, and we might, you know, get there. But I think LA, the way we lost Game 6, that was difficult to recover from, because now, for the first time in my career, we were a talking topic of the offseason. Like for the first time in our group, we were like, you're in LA, you're talked about. I mean, even though it's like it's not the Lakers, you're still talked about. Like for us, that was the first year where we were the talking topic of stuff, and now those conversations are louder. The losses are louder. The wins aren't as loud because we're expected to win, and every mistake is louder. Now it's not even just TV. It's
then you guys start blowing leads last year, and that
now
gets
you
louder,
blow leads.
yeah.
Now that gets louder. Do we have enough? Is Donovan, you know, good enough to do this? Is Rudy good enough? Is Mike? Is this team? Or is this the same team every year? And you can say what you want, but at the end of the day, like, we are all people. Like, we hear that. Like, you know what I mean? You could say like, oh yeah, I don't have Twitter. Like, you hear it at some point, whether it's the reporters asking you the questions post game, like at some point you're going to hear it. And I think that after the Clippers one, it was just one of those things it just hit us. And it was just one of those things we just couldn't recover from that, because we continuously lost the same way. And that's how we ended up losing to Dallas. But, you know, I like I said, man, we had a talented group, and, you know, it sucks. Like, it kills me that we didn't get as far as we could have, but it's a learning lesson, I think, that I'll be able to take from my career. and continuously put in to Cleveland where I'm at now and be like, hey, like, doesn't matter, what on paper we are, doesn't matter what we should be. Because I just love the situation where we could have been, something really special. And we weren't. We didn't get the job done. So I think for me, I'm appreciative of it. It hurts, but I'm appreciative of it because now I find a way to continuously try and grow.